What's up, guys? Welcome back for another video. Today we are talking about avatars. So if you watched my manga chapter review, I mentioned that avatars get explained in the most recent chapter of Beyblade X with Team Persona against Team Pendragon during the fight with Multi against Toguro. Now, a few days ago I made a video about avatars, whether or not they were going to come back, whether or not they were going to just be visual eye candy, what was going on, how they could explain it. Here's the thing. Plastic Gen did Bit Beast. That was the most cohesive explanation and lore behind avatars in Beyblade to date. And what I mean by that is, like, Plastic Gen, you had Bit Beasts that were like these spirits, whatever, that would fight alongside Bladers. They weren't trapped in the Beyblades. You couldn't catch them. They could leave if they wanted to. They chose to fight alongside Bladers. They weren't tied to the Beyblade. They just chose to inhabit it. And the power between the Beyblader and the Beyblade or whatever was sort of like this cohesive thing, like this more like fighting spirit the character had. The stronger the Bit Beast would become, the stronger the Beyblade would become, etc. That was the most cohesive. They had backstories for some of the different Bit Beasts and how, like, some of them were like family lineage type things, like guardian beasts of the family. Others were like village protectors or whatever, things like that. Sacred beasts. That worked really well. Metal Fight, I don't feel like really explained it very well. Burst basically had avatars during battles in the first season where you could would see them during battle, but they were never acknowledged until the second season. And the second season did the whole red eye thing, and then you'd get this sort of back and forth between characters talking to avatars or the red eye thing. It was kind of messy for Burst. So when X started, I was like, I don't know if I want avatars to come back, because X is sports based. It's professional based. It's supposed to be realistic and focus on like the actual, like sport hobby aspect of the franchise. A different direction. It's supposed to be taking it more seriously as far as the actual products in the universe go. It's not really a fantasy story this time, unlike Bakujin Shoot or Metal Fight. Burst sort of went into more fantasy as it went on, but this is more grounded. So I didn't want them to just put avatars in just to put them in, just for visual eye candy. So I didn't want them to just show up in battle with no explanation. So I was like, just don't bring them back if you're going to do it that way. I don't have a problem with avatars coming back. I just, they need to be explained, and they need to make sense in the universe that they're set in. So they make sense in Metal Fight, they make sense in Plastic Gen, and Burst tried to sort of explain it further into the series. But what they did this time makes perfect sense. So they are part of the 4X rather, the 4X battle system, which is part of sort of like the X system. I don't know if it's part of the tower. I'm fairly sure it's part of the tower. It's part of, like, 4X is a system that I think is integrated into the tower itself. I don't know that it works outside of the tower. It might, I'm not sure, they haven't explained it yet. But basically the 4X system logs like the design, the stats of the Beyblade, like the rotation speed, the power, etc. And during battle, that system projects the avatar. I'm calling it an avatar. I don't know if that's what it's going to be called. It may be called a new term. It wasn't called avatar. Avatar is like a burst term. So it may be called something completely different for X. I'm just using that as sort of a placeholder until we know. I would imagine that they're going to call it something else. But they are projections of the avatar of the Beyblade based on the information that the 4X system has. And you can see them sort of clashing and battling in the most recent chapter of the manga, and that is just a projection, like a hologram, basically. So, like augmented reality, probably more like hologram, but sort of like Yu-Gi-Oh! So Yu-Gi-Oh! In the series, like when they would play a card, they had this sort of hologram system that when they play the card, the monster would show up on the field. Same thing. So they're not spirits, they're not intrinsically like in the Beyblade. There's no Blader spirit connection that we know of. As far as we know, it is literally just a hologram, just like Yu-Gi-Oh! So when they battle, it's just a hologram projection of what's happening. So I think that is brilliant. I think that's the best way that they could explain it. Keep that fantasy element visually without it really being a fantasy element. Like, it makes total sense for the series. So you get to have the giant monsters, they get to fight each other, which in the manga they actually fight, whereas like we didn't see a lot of like sort of dynamic fights between the avatars in Burst, I don't feel like. Not to the same degree where they're like physically hitting each other. I think in this series, at least in the manga, it seems to imply that that's going to be a thing. And like Burst, they would show up when the Beyblade was going, and that was like sort of it. But I think we're going to actually see them interact, which is cool, because we haven't really seen that heavily since probably Plastic Gen. So the visual aspect of it reminds me a lot of Plastic Gen, but the way that they explain it reminds me very much of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which I think is just perfect. That's like the best way that they could do it, and it not feel like it's not explained well, or like I'm totally satisfied with this. Totally satisfied. I think me and Zanki and Ilanuk, when we were doing the like Roblox Beyblade X event stream, we talked about it briefly, and one of us had mentioned augmented reality as a way to explain the avatars, and that's basically what it is. So I don't remember which one of us said it, but one of us called it, so props to whoever that was. Anyway, I've seen other people also comment on some of my other videos the same thing, so I think it was a theme that felt natural to a lot of people given sort of the setting of the series already, so I'm glad that they took advantage of that. I'm totally hyped for it. I think that's a great idea. Props to the writer. Very cool. Also, the avatars in the manga look great. I will say that the art that we've seen of Drawn Sword in the manga, personally, I think looks better than the art that we saw in the opening credits of the anime. And Wizard Era looks sick. But, I mean, maybe it'll look better in future episodes or when it actually appears in the anime or whatever. But Wizard Era looks very cool. Viper Tail looked very cool. Leon looks super cool. So all of the like the chip designs for the avatars look super cool, and I'm super hyped for it. But anyway, that's all I've got, guys. I'm very interested to know your thoughts, whether or not you're good with this. Like, some people I think wanted different things, but I think this is the best way that they could explain it given the sort of like professional sports setting of it. But I'm very hyped to see sort of where they go with it in the future and what other designs they come up with, and sort of the variation, especially when like Drawn Dagger comes out. Is that visually going to be much different, or is it just going to be the attack that looks different? I don't know, but I guess we'll find out. So thanks for watching, guys. Hit the like for the algorithm, and I will see you in the next one. And really quickly, big shout out to our patrons, PJC92, Joseph, Zanki, Teddy, Lucario, Jotomo, Blueberry, and Sammy. Thank you guys for supporting the channel, and thank you everybody for watching.